This time on Level Up with Lighthouse, we're talking about a topic that you can use at work, at home, literally anywhere. Project management. You're going to learn something new. Let's go. Welcome back. In last episode, we had Mary from Tech Buffalo on the show, and she was talking a lot about different programs and projects that she's been running with Tech Buffalo to be able to drive some strategic talent initiatives forward. So it's kind of a cool dovetail to come into project management as our topic on this episode, but I want to really make this helpful for everybody. So we're calling this episode Project Management for the non-project managers, and I really hope we made this conversation accessible to everybody, bring in some examples from people who have been in different parts of the world, different industries, different perspectives, and bring a really cool conversation that I hope you'll learn from. Glad to be here with my friend Pauline today. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good.
So good to see you. We just met at Women in Tech a couple weeks ago at the end of March. Say hi to everyone at home real quick.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Very excited to be here. And Ray did a really good introduction for me at Women in Tech. So I'm really excited to loop in again.
Yeah, yes. I was so inspired by your story,
Thank
not
you.
just like your knowledge, but your career path.
Yeah.
And I was like, we need to dig into this more and keep the conversation going. So
Awesome.
Thanks for being here, Pauline.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit, because so you were born in Chicago area, right?
Yes, Evanston,
Illinois.
to be specific, yeah.
And now you live in Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo, New York.
Which theoretically is like a pretty straight line, but you've actually had like a really incredible journey of traveling all over the world, like lots of different jobs and whatnot. So kind of teach us your path there and what you've learned along the way.
Indeed. So, yes, I was born in Evanston, Illinois, because my dad got a scholarship to Northwestern University. My dad was a nuclear physicist, so that was kind of the aspiration for all of us in the family.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like the hero in the village where he came from, because he was like the PhD in that area. And nice. I grew up in Kenya, which is a beautiful country. One of the things that I really miss is the sunsets, and the acacia trees, that savanna grassland view. Was raised there, learned many languages. It's a multi-ethnic community. That's why I speak so many languages. I give credit to Kenya for opening me up to the world, and then came back to the U.S. 25 years ago for college.
Woohoo!
So so was at St. Joe's for anyone from Philly, then moved from St. Joe's, Philadelphia, went to Jersey for a while, went to Kansas for a while, went to Chicago for a while, before I moved to the D.C. area, where I got my career started with the State Department. That got me around the world, which was amazing. Mm-hmm. I can say I've been to over 30 countries.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
That's quite a few. Yeah.
And I went pretty rapidly to those countries because I was a diplomatic courier officer for 4 years. So that got me to the West African region, Central West Africa, and the Middle East. And I went to some of the hot spots in the world. I've been to Guinea-Bissau when they were having a coup, Chad when they had a coup. I was out in Yemen when they had a rocketing in the embassy. I've been to Iraq. Baghdad was one of my hotspots. Kabul was another one, Kandahar, all the way to Pakistan.
Oh my gosh.
So I've been to all the hotspots, and I kind of like the thrill of that career and managing, providing solutions in very difficult situations. So I think that experience was probably the foundational experience for me, because it kind of made me have a love of managing risk. And so I think, that's kind of led me to a project management career that has been exciting. Started in DC, working with a lot of contracts before moving to Buffalo. How did I get to Buffalo? Marriage.
Take a wild guess. It's like one path or the other.
It's so funny because I remember my dad telling me about the blizzard of '77 when I was a kid in Kenya. He was like, man, because I said, what's Buffalo? He's like, there's a place in America called Buffalo, and those people get snow. The blizzards there. I was like, that's a place I'll never end up. And then I ended up in Buffalo. Like,
lo and behold,
I'm here now, and I love it. I think this is a very welcoming city. As they say, it's really the city of good neighbors. I have felt so welcomed. I love the different pieces of character that you see in different places, whether you're in Cheektowaga, whether you're in the downtown area, whether you're in the south towns and north towns. I love it all. And I don't think the north and the south are that far apart, but People
No.
definitely feel like they have their turfs here, but I love it all. So
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things. I always tell people when they're new to Buffalo too. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what you're into. If you're into like the sports scene or you're a foodie,
Yeah.
the arts, like the outdoors, tech, like
Yeah.
tech now obviously gaining a lot of steam. Like there's a
Yeah.
place for you. There's awesome community of people who are going to welcome you in and like show you the way around.
Yeah.
It sounds like you found that a lot too.
Yeah, just this weekend
yeah.
I went to Kleinhans. They had
nice.
a musician I knew from Mali when I worked in West Africa. He was here performing.
No kidding.
So I went
Nice.
for this is the son of Ali Farka Touré, for those who love, world music.
Yeah.
And it was just a beautiful experience. I've been to Shays a number of times. I've been to all these different theaters around, in town, and I just love the cultural scene in Buffalo. So it's impressive, like how much we draw from everywhere in this area. So it's exciting.
And so you're starting to set down some roots here. Your husband is from here, right?
He's from here. He was
Also a military vet, I think.
born
right?
at Mercy.
Yeah.
Left after high school to join the Navy, and also had a very interesting adventure. We met in DC while he was also working there, and I'm the one who fought for Buffalo, though. I want to get the credit.
There you go.
I'm the one
Take
who
it.
said
Take it.
Buffalo is amazing. We need to go there, and it's like, DC has all the jobs, but you know what? Buffalo is growing, and I think I'm a testament to the excitement here. So
Yeah, 100%. What was really like helpful for you? Because I know you're really involved with PMI Buffalo now.
Yes.
Was that kind of like a group that really helped you kind of find some like local professional community as you moved here, or is that more of a recent?
I think it's that, and also just the networks we made through our community here,
Sure,
because
yeah.
we got to meet a lot of people through different settings, and I kind of feel like in this area there's so many interesting things that you could be involved in that can get you to know, whether it's volunteering, whether it's with the different not-profits, the churches, the events that they have. So there's a lot of things that I think connected me to this area. The other thing I would say about Buffalo that I really love is the fact that you don't have the commutes that we had in the DC area. That was like a huge draw for me, because it's easy to get around. There's more than one way to get to places, even if one area is blocked, which is not always the case in the DC area.
For sure.
And just the quality of life. I think as a family, we've enjoyed ourselves a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The family aspect is nice, and like anywhere you want to go, it's as long as you're close to a highway, you kind of get anywhere too. But you can kind of manage your route if there's an accident one way,
Yeah.
cut through another way, and things like that. Lots of that.
I always find
Makes
it
it really
funny
good.
how people in Buffalo feel like 20 minutes is their tolerance level. Like anything beyond 20 minutes usually gets people like set off. Like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. It's not even the time as much as like if there's any sort of traffic, like if I'm on the highway and I have to slow down to 40, it's only taking my commute from 20 minutes to a half hour.
Yeah.
But I'm still just like so like it just sets me off of just like this is not what I expected. This is but it's really like such a minor inconvenience. Yeah.
Meanwhile in DC we're like, this is nothing. Like, get over it.
What do you mean? It doesn't take you 2 hours to get to work? Like.
Yeah, I know. So
Yeah.
so I like that part about it. Yeah. So.
Oh man, I love it, and I'm trying to like think of a pivot back to project management here, because that's what we had you here for.
Yeah.
Talking about project management. Before the show, we were talking a lot about like the parenting aspect of life, and that being such like a great part of being in Buffalo and being able to like raise a family and things like that. And like as kids are growing up, there's so much work that goes into how do you raise a human being to do the things that you ideally like want them to do and the values you want them to learn.
Yeah.
And like there is also like an aspect of your work in project management that way, right? Of like helping people
Absolutely.
understand common motivations, like communication, teamwork, those kinds of things. Like there's so many different cool overlaps there.
There are, because one of the things I always say is I see such a huge difference between the PM I was pre-marriage family and after. One of the things you learn in a family is the art of negotiation, give and take. The other thing you learn is managing time and resources. The other thing is multitasking, because you absolutely don't own your time and control it as much as you could when you're single. As a young professional, I could, after work, just hang out and not worry about what's for dinner. I could just grab a quick bite or, just do my thing. But if I have to go pick up my child from school and help them with their homework and, figure out what's for dinner and, all these other things. Or I get a call from the school that, hey, your child isn't feeling well, could you just come and pick them up? Or, there's all these other aspects you have to deal with, not to mention you have to deal with your in-laws and what are we going to do for the holidays, and then just the budgets, family budgets, and planning things and prioritizing things. And I find like people who know how to manage their internal budget, their family time, tend to also be really good at work, like tend to be really good project managers, because they know how to manage emotions, manage people, communicate, read in between the lines when something is not going right and nobody's really articulating it.
Yeah.
And those are skills that I think really come in handy. And what is the difference between a PM who has the PMP and one that doesn't? I would say it's the best practices. One has this sort of organized, systematic way of organizing things. And just like in a home, I say that in every profession, we have best practices. The best run homes have people who have actually taken time to learn how to manage a home, how to organize spaces, how to manage meals, how to do the cleaning, the laundry, which is a huge part of a family life. So a person who knows how to manage those aspects of a home is able to be very successful at that. It's the same thing with the project manager. A project manager who has that systematic way of running a project knows that I start out by having that high level understanding, in my charter. I identify who are the key stakeholders and understand what their motivations are and what their goals are. And I understand where we're trying to really go. What is the scope? What do we need to do? What are we not doing up front before we veer off in the wrong direction? How can I break down the work in this project? How can I manage the quality? How can I manage the risks, which sometimes are known, sometimes are unknown. But the fact is that every project incurs these issues, whether it's you're running a home project, you're running a tech project, you're going to need those skills. And that's why I think the value of being a project manager who's has the best practices is that you just end up having an edge in how you run your project.
100%. And there's so much good there when it comes to the different principles of project management you just hit on right there, of timelines, budget, risk. And these are things that are universal. Like we think about project management a lot in the tech context, right? Whether it's agile, scrum teams, things like that. But any job, there's project management because there's things that the business needs to achieve to continue providing their products or services, find new ways to do it better. Risk mitigation you mentioned in there was an interesting thing that stuck out to me as well. Because when you're a project manager within a team, like you can take the responsibility for those, and then also like really click in and be like, okay, how do we avoid this? How do we build in some maybe not necessarily redundancies, but just kind of like mitigation plans. But what does that kind of look like in your work too? Because I imagine that's avoiding risks is really key for being able to keep things on time, on budget, et cetera.
Well, it's kind of interesting because one of the things I remember from just project management theory was understanding that risk could be positive or negative. It's not like always risks are bad. There might be a risk that, for example, when we launch this, there could be such a demand for it that now we need to figure out how do we supply for all this demand. So that's a great risk, right? But most of the time what we focus on are the negative risks, the things that could go wrong, and try to figure out how. So I guess one of the things we assess is what is the appetite of this organization for risk? Because some organizations are big players, like they sort of remind me of like gamblers, who are willing to, they want the big win, and so they're willing to take the big risks because they're like, what, the reward would be much greater. But then there's some who are like, let's hedge our bets. And I think especially like right now in this economy, I think a lot of people are looking at hedging bets in terms of managing risk in such a way that there's a lot of unpredictability perhaps, and that makes people think, okay, let's take the cautious path where we maybe half in, half out, or, so that's one thing I think as a project manager you have to determine is understanding what is my company's level of risk appetite. Are they low risk? Because if they're low risk, then you really want to make sure that you manage to that. And if they are higher risk, then you want to serve them that. You want to be able to show them that we'll get the bigger rewards that you want. So that's a big thing to note.
That's a really different way that I don't think I thought about that before. Like the term risk appetite makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And there are lots of organizations you think about, maybe high growth startups, for example,
Yeah.
as something where risk appetite is something that they have a lot of because they have really big, hairy, audacious goals and they want to,
Yeah.
chase these big growths and things like that.
Right.
That's a really different way to think about that. And have you been in different environments where it's like the risk appetite might be a
Yeah.
little bit different? Like, how does that change your work?
Yes, and it's kind of interesting you actually talked about the startups because it's true. Like I have been in startups where they're willing to like even close that company and start a new company if that doesn't work. Like,
Yeah.
but then if it works, then of course, then they're excited. And then I've worked in areas that are a little less risky. For example, like I know just like even in the banking sector, like in terms of mortgages, like trying to make sure that they're not giving risky mortgages has been one of the big things is trying to figure out who are the safe clients to give money because we still want to be profitable. That's another area, by the way, in project management that you can even go deeper for risk management because understanding how to assess risk is really a critical piece of project management, quantitatively, qualitatively, understanding whether this will add value or not add value and kind of quantify the numbers. So I think especially for those of you out there who are thinking about risk management, I would recommend like the RMP for PMI. There's a specific certification that focuses on risk management.
Great.
Because that's a big area that I think a lot of companies are looking at right now in our current climate.
For sure.
Yeah.
And there's, within the work of project management, whether it's as a project manager or otherwise, we've hit on a couple of different aspects right there. How did you learn to be a project manager? Like, was it a combination of you've obviously had a lot of jobs all across the world in very different hot zones and things like that, but you also have a lot of certifications as well, I know too.
Yeah.
What really has been most beneficial for you in terms of how you've learned to do the work?
So I first of all, I say you learn by doing. We talk about project management being a practitioner. So most people who are PMPs will tell you that they started out first working in projects, then became project managers.
Got it.
Right? And a lot of times you don't even realize you're a project manager because usually you're just kind of thrown into it. You're given the responsibilities. Hey, take care of this, take care of that, take care of the other. And so some people organically kind of get into project management. There are, however, people who get into it intentionally. Like there are programs, even in college, where you can focus on management and project management specifically. Like I know UB has that. And so that's how some people enter, like with a sense of, or they had a business degree and focused on managing of projects. I got in from an international relations background and kind of working as a diplomatic career and managing a lot of the operational side of things, and then coming back to the US and working for a lot of DoD contracts, which were very tech related, like upgrades of tech systems, and all those kind of things. And that kind of landed me gradually into seeing, wait, that's all I'm doing is managing, scope, time, cost for all these different projects. And my husband was like, you can be a PMP. You're already doing it. And, at first it's like, you're like, really? Like,
oh, wait.
Can I go into this career? Because it was like almost like a career shift. It's like a mind shift, because most people come from different areas and don't see themselves as project managers, but you are doing the work. A lot of the people I trained to get their the boot camps to get their PMPs were military people who are like, I've been working on different things in the military for years. Now I'm leaving the military and I'm trying to transition into a civilian career. I don't know where to start. And I'm like, wait, you've been responsible for how many people? Hundreds of people? And how many budgets have you had to handle? And how many contracts have you been managing? I'm like, wait, you are a project manager. You just need to take some time and kind of formalize that into your PMP, and that can be your segue into a civilian career. So I think for a lot of us, that's how it kind of drifts. It's not for everyone, because being a project manager means the buck stops with you. You are the person who is really a servant leader in many ways, because you are the one who has to be answerable for why are we off budget? Why are we not meeting all the scope? You have to make the tough calls when people are not, wanting to report on things. You have to be the accountability person. So there are certain things which are not for everyone in project management.
I loved the servant leadership phrase that you said in there too. And project management is like such a great place to look at that concept.
Yeah.
This is one I've read about and learned a lot about from people who have also really tried to embody that.
Yeah.
Where does that kind of come into play in your work? Is that something that you're thinking about in terms of like when you're on a project team, you're in service of the greater goal and how you communicate that, with all the people who are kind of stakeholders in the project, people who are doing the work with you?
Yeah.
Like, what does servant leadership look like in your work?
So, so first of all, the term servant leadership is used a lot in the agile world, but I do want to say that it applies to, I think, any project manager, even if you're not in the agile world, because at the end of the day, you're there to meet the needs of the stakeholders who are supporting your project. So you have the sponsor, you have the people funding, and to those you're accountable because they want to make sure that you're keeping to what they want and what they paid for. But you also want to make sure that you're getting the right people on the deck to serve, to make those needs happen. So getting the right talent on the team, getting the right, understanding what motivates your team to perform. And actually, I always feel like that's something that they don't study in PMP, but the psychology of the different players is such a huge part. And I guess now that's what they call the empathy side. It's understanding, getting into the shoes of everyone who is in the project and trying to figure out what do they want. Sometimes you can be very frustrated when you have very demanding sponsors or stakeholders, but there is a side to them that you need to understand as well. And I think the successful project manager is the one who can pretty much empathize with the different stakeholders, because you have to meet them where they are in order to get where you want to get in a project. So.
Okay, that makes sense. You said two terms in there that actually I'm curious about personally, just because I like hear them a lot, but like the delineation is a little iffy between sponsor and stakeholder.
Okay.
Like what are those two types of roles? Like when you're talking about a project team, and like how do you as a project manager, do you interact with like stakeholders versus sponsors differently, or like how does that kind of look?
Good question.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
The sponsor is one of the stakeholders.
Got it. Okay.
Now you have different stakeholders with different levels of influence, interest in the project.
Yeah.
So stakeholders is a very broad term. Essentially, stakeholder is anybody who is impacted by the project, one way or another. So of course, the sponsor is impacted by the project. So not every stakeholder holds the same weight on a project.
Got it. Okay.
So the sponsor probably holds the heaviest weight in a project because they could essentially cut off the funding, and that's the end of that. But you do also have the people who are actually doing the work as stakeholders, and if they're not happy, they won't perform, and that impacts the project. And then you have the end users or the buyers, customers, whoever is on the receiving end of whatever is being made, and if they don't like it, the stakeholder will be mad. The team will probably have to redo the work, or so there's all those kind of nuances in a project, but basically that's what a stakeholder is. A stakeholder is any person who's kind of one way or another involved in the project.
Okay.
So you have different players. Sometimes it's the vendors. Vendors that you're using to supply what you need for the project. And having good vendors is so important for a project success, and timely deliveries of the pieces you need to do the work can impact the schedule. So a project has a lot of layers and complexities, and I think that's part of it's enjoyable. I like it, but I know for some people it's just like, oh my gosh, this is so many.
Well, that's the diplomatic background there, right? And the people aspect of it.
And maybe that's where the family skills come in, because you're used to you have something boiling there, you have a kid running there, you have a lot of things going on. Or if you're in the military, you've learned to take orders from several people and just make no excuses. Get it done.
There's the metaphorical like burners on the stovetop, and you're shuffling everything. Sometimes it's on the back burner, it's on the front burner. Got to keep stirring this. You got to mix that up. And then like sometimes at home with parenting too, it's also very literal of like, oh my gosh, I got three things cooking for dinner, and I got kids running around, and oh my gosh, so many parallels there. Like, could do a whole show about that.
I will say this though, a successful project manager is one who also knows how to delegate, because like I just said, you have so many moving pieces. You have to trust your team. great leaders know how to empower their team to do the work, because at some point you're not going to be able to handle everything. But if you trust your team and you empower them to do the work, they will do it. They will support you. Sometimes things will fail, but if you show them trust and make them feel that you're leaning on them, they will come through for you. And that's, I think, one of the things that successful project managers do, is they know how to really draw out the best out of each person in the team.
Yeah, that's incredible right there.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting pivot there, because want to talk about two different sides of project management. We talked about the talent side a lot, like the people, the connectedness, the people you need involved in the project, things like that. Technology is kind of like the other side of it, right? Even talking about delegation, like how do you communicate a delegation or tasks and things like that? There's a million and one project management tools out there, I'm sure. What have you learned kind of in the course of your work about like the technology aspect of project management, and how technology helps you more effectively manage everything and get the project done?
I'll say that technology there's no way around it, especially with what happened, like with COVID, and we were all like remote. If we didn't have technology, I don't think the country would have moved forward. Like that whole idea of, especially we communicate a lot through technology, and then not just the communication part, also the way we do our work. Like, for example, a lot of project managers use, different pieces of software, whether it's MS Project, whether it's Smartsheets, whether it's Excel. We're using different tools to help us present our work to the stakeholders. Then there's I would say the other aspect that I would look at when I think about technology, though, and this is like more on the other side. I mean, now we have AI, which is actually even making the work lighter. It's sort of like your secretary. It's helping you with some of those like menial tasks that were very time consuming, like whether it's your minutes or whether it's putting together some of those reports that were taking hours to do, and now you can, so having technology is really like supposed to enhance how you perform your work. The downside, though, is sometimes we can lose the personal connection, the personal touch. And I think for most of us, especially with COVID, the distance sometimes became so much. And for projects, like one of the frustrating things is when you could get everyone on a table, it was easy to work together and move things forward. But when people got remote, it became so much harder sometimes to herd the team and get the same work done, because it's like there's certain things that are lost in translation on screens. And there's also the fact that sometimes you can't get people to be as driven or accountable sometimes when they're behind screens. So I think that's why there's a big drive. I think a lot of trends are backing this, that people are more coming back to work now. Most companies are preferring, because they realize that dip in productivity and a sluggishness in certain areas. So technology has that positive, but then there's also the human interaction. And I think that's why Agile pushes for that more face-to-face over you'd think Agile would be more just screens, but no, they prefer face-to-face if possible. Tactile connection.
For sure. It's an interesting balancing act, too, because actually one thing we started doing at Lighthouse a little bit, we use Otter as a tool for like helping out with meetings and turning a transcript into action items and things like that. Awesome. And some of the times that it seems to work really well, actually, is like when we have a whole big team meeting with like 5-6 people in a conference room, and when we're still having the OtterBot join the conversation and like listen in and all those kinds of things, and then that way, like, we might be tracking the to-dos still while we go, but there's still a buffer of like, hey, if we just need to like be in the conversation and have some sort of solution to help us keep track of, hey, you're having a lot of heavy conversation, but remember, you've got to do these 5-6 things out of there. You've got that right there. Like, this is such an interesting part of like where the world is going, is the balance of talent and technology. And it's a really delicate thing.
It is,
But being able to understand both sides of it, and then from your side too, like the diplomatic aspect, like understanding the common motivations, moving things forward. I imagine you've probably got a pretty good grasp through all the different places you've been, just like being able to balance talent and technology to like get to the place where you want to go.
Yes, I would say one of the things that you probably also want to look at is, when you sit in the same room, one of the
Yeah.
things that I was thinking about is you're seeing the face. You can see
Mm.
the expression. Like, you can tell when somebody is not going to make a deadline if you're in the same room because they have that body language that, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Uh-huh.
But if they're on a screen, you may not quite catch that, especially
Sure.
if they have their camera off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was going to say the talent and technology balance is something that I think we're going to have to embrace, completely in the future. I think even kids are learning AI now in school. So it's like a part of how we're going to do things. One of the things we keep talking about in PMI is that AI is here to stay. The PM who has AI is going to be able to perform at a higher level than the one who doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But companies have to adapt to it. One of the things that I notice is you may want to do AI more privately because some companies have not yet engaged in it fully internally because of the security levels, whether they are
Sure.
like banking, healthcare. Certain sectors have a lot of PII and things to be concerned about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even though AI is really the future, as they say, I think there's going to probably be developing in-house AI tools that are safer, and that might take time.
Sure.
But I think knowing how to leverage it, like do the right prompts to enhance your at least your personal skills, I think is important because that will translate to you being prepared for when your companies
sure.
are ready to take you to that next level. So,
Yeah. Even just seeing the last kind of like 3 years or so where I feel
Yeah.
like AI
Oh my
really
gosh.
came into the zeitgeist, like when ChatGPT first came out, it was like AI and generative AI, like they've been around, but when it became like a ubiquitous part of like every day, like it's a free tool and I can go to it in a web browser on my phone
Yes.
and I can use it a bunch. That I think was really the catalyst for like now we're in this like AI everything
Yes.
era.
Yeah.
And it's great and there's so much opportunity there too, but there's also, like you said too, the opportunity in the future for some of these more private solutions of, hey, how can we help AI specifically do our work better
Yeah,
without,
internally,
yeah,
without the risk of losing data that is internal.
yeah, it's a big thing to look forward to.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, I'm
yeah.
looking forward to that. One of the benefits for me as a project manager is just the fact that I think it's taken away a lot of the menial tasks. Like
Nice.
when you're doing like those reporting or communications and you're trying to summarize things, or when you're trying to do a presentation and you're trying to clean it up, like it's the things that used to take you like an hour, 2 hours to put together that are now just instantaneously happening.
Sure.
And that is definitely I think a plus. We need to use it though for higher level things, and I think for those who know AI more are finding that we do need to kind of get a better grasp of it, so we're not just using it to do basic tasks that we could have.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything, without giving away any trade secrets or anything, is there anything that you like about AI that's kind of helped you, advance at a higher level, or are you kind of still looking at it as a, hey, it's helping me with the day-to-day things, and that's giving me more mental load to do some of the highest and best work that I need to do?
I think for me, I've been using it a lot with, first of all, just cleaning up what I have already done. Because
Sure.
I think
Oh, great
that,
idea.
because one of the things that I think, I mean, it can start you up if you don't really have a clue of where to go. But I think it's like, remember that back in the day, that garbage in, garbage out. I feel like if you don't, the people who are getting the most out of AI are using the right prompts or are giving it something solid to work on. And then they're getting really something great. And the other thing is you want originality. You don't want to lose authenticity. That's actually probably the biggest thing that I would say for me is I like it to give me some idea, but then I want to take it back and personalize it because we don't want to lose the personhood, the authenticity. Because I want someone to read something and know it came from me. One of the treasures I have is all the letters that my parents wrote me.
Oh my gosh.
I have a whole box of them, and seeing just the beauty of original writing, I'm like, I hope we don't lose that personal touch. Like looking at this, for example, the value in this is the retro feel. It takes you back to a time. It's not something you see everywhere, you know. And I think that's what I think when I think of what we're looking at is we want those original writings, those original thoughts. We want to see what are you really about? What is your unique contribution? And I think that that we don't want to lose that. That's going to be the prime gem that people are going to be looking for in the future is what, because if I can do everything on AI, then what is the point of the education? What is the point if AI can do it all? What is the point of getting the PMP if it can rattle out everything?
Yeah.
So the point is, and actually that is one of the things we were thinking about. I was talking to a PM the other day, and we were saying that what we're really being paid for as project managers is taking on the responsibility to solve the problem. It's like you're being paid to be the adult in the room, and you're taking a responsibility to make sure things move through, like work out, whether it's the budget, whether it's the scope, whether it's the difficult stakeholder who's frustrated. You're taking the punches. That's a human thing that AI cannot do, and that's the challenge, is realizing that there is an authentic skill that comes from actual real study, not superficial study. There's an actual need to go deeper than just the surface. So for example, AI can analyze a document if I put it in there, but there's something about reading the original document and understanding all the details about it that AI cannot do for me. So I need to read that document and understand that document. Then AI can perhaps help me enhance my summary of it. But if I didn't understand and grasp what that document was really talking about, I have not moved forward with my, and you know, I'm doing my graduate studies, and one of the things the professor said is, I know all of you know about AI. I can read AI, I can tell, and actually there are a lot of tools now to help them read AI, like get to know that this was an AI produced thing as opposed to...
and being able to detect from the outputs and the patterns of how it generates,
They can tell. So, you know, like one of the things that, like, I mean, you can enhance AI to the point where it can polish things out. Like if you don't like a certain line, you can tell it, get that line out, get this, that, you know, like, I hope you're doing well is not a line I start by saying. I hope you're doing well. I don't usually say that when I start, but AI will always say, I hope you're doing well. I'm like...
Can we just stop on that for a second? AI is so nice. Like... Like I want to make this thing every time. It's instantly just like, great idea.
I know, you're like, that's not
this
how
has
I
so
talk.
many qualities. Here's how we help.
And you know, so I've been asking myself. It's actually made me like more authentic in some, like, kind of learn myself, because I'm like, that's not how I talk. That's not how I would write. You know, so there are times when I'm like, it's actually doing me an injustice, because this is not how I express myself. There is a way I express myself, and that needs to come through, you know. However, I do like when it gives me other words that I could not have used, or avoids the typos that usually happen. So those are things that I kind of want to look at. But going back to what I was saying, you need to study, you need to have the real understanding of the content, and then you also need to be there to physically solve problems that AI cannot solve. And sometimes you can tell the lack of emotional intelligence, because it will not understand, I need to resolve this stakeholder this way. It does not know the history of the stakeholder. I know the history of the stakeholder. It may think this is a good response to that stakeholder, but I know this stakeholder from working with them for the last 5 years. So I know I need to handle this a little bit differently.
That institutional knowledge, AI doesn't have it unless you give it to it.
You have contextual knowledge. And I think that's one of the things that we need to value more now. I think those are the things people are going to value more in the new job, you know, setting, is those EQ skills, those hands-on. I want to hear how you solved a real problem, not how you wrote a report, because I know you could use ChatGPT to do a really polished thing, but I want to know, how did you actually work through this with the team and come up to a solution, you know, up with a solution.
And that's a great part of where AI, like, there's a lot of fear around, like, if AI is going to take jobs and things like that. And there are very core things to how work gets done, how the world operates, that AI, I don't think, is going to be replicating. In project management, you said there's the onus of, hey, the project manager is the person
Yes.
where the buck stops with me.
Yes.
And if somebody needs to hold some account because the buck stops there, like there's a person that you have a conversation with, and the person has all of the context and all the documentation and all the things that went into the project. Like, is AI going to have that? What's the ramifications of if a business was to replace a person project manager with an AI tool? Who's responsible then? Is that person who's the director or the sponsor or whoever taking the responsibility themselves, or are they putting it on, oh, it's just the tool? Like That's a really interesting conversation that I think is going to come up in the future as well. That there's that side of AI, and then there's also like when AI is able to learn how to do everything, everything knowledge-wise, because it's all on the internet and it's all available and possible to be consumed. Like, what's left at the end of the day other than your uniqueness, your humanness, your podcast setup that has comic books all over the wall, and choosing to do that and make a conscious choice because that's different and that's you. That's really what's left at the end of the day, but that's also the most important thing out of marketing or project management or anything in work, really.
Yes, it's the vulnerability, it's the humanness, it's the fact that I know you have experiences that are unique, that will make you the person that can work with people well. So I hope that the takeaway for most PMs is that I need to invest in especially EQ as a project manager, because it's a business of relationships.
For sure.
Relationships with your sponsor, relationships with your vendors, relationships with your team, relationships with the contractors and all the other people who are involved, all the different players, and you're trying to balance all those to move them to the vision, the direction. So you have these objectives, you have key results, but you realize as a project manager, it's like I always have this concert conductor, and how you get the music coming together. It's every person has to play their part for that harmony. You're doing that as a project manager, and that is an art. There is an art to it. There is some seasoned qualities there. It's character.
Sure.
It is character that you need to build, to learn to be patient, to learn to be organized, to learn to manage time. Yeah, it's a lot of order.
Keeping everything in order, and AI will help for sure.
Yeah.
But we've covered so much ground here, Pauline, with like project management. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you're like, oh my gosh, wait, this is one of my favorite parts of project management that I need people to know?
My favorite part of project management, one of the things I can say that I found very beautiful because I was, as I said, I didn't even think of myself going into this thing, but when I studied the PMBOK, which is the Project Management Book of Knowledge, I loved the systematic order of every area is covered, every area is taken care of, because I felt like I had a comprehensive approach to managing a project. Now, in reality, things do not always have that neat, organized. Life is messy.
Really?
Life is messy.
Oh, we all know this.
Life is messy. But what I loved is how I had like something I could lean on, and I felt like I had some real value to provide to teams. So for me, I got so into it. I memorized all the content, and I actually got into training people the content, and I enjoyed because I felt like I am giving a template. Like it's sort of like having a template that helps that you can run your shop properly. You can run your team properly. So I guess that's my exciting thing, is that you have best practices that you can use, something you can lean on and help your team. What are most companies paying for? Most companies want to have processes. That's one of the richest things a company can have, is those organizational process assets that even if I leave, even if you leave, they still have this way of doing things that is unique to them, that keeps things running for them. And if you can provide that solid, organizational plan where they have a system that works and is reliable and helps them have good quality and do their work well, that company is in a very good place. So I feel like that's the beauty of having the project management, is that you are giving a company a real wealth that they can hold on to for years to come.
It's the way you do what you do, and that's cool to be able to have a hand
if I can
in shifting
establish
those
that for a
processes, for
company,
sure.
yes, I feel like I've done them a great favor, and they've also given me an opportunity to serve in an organized way, as opposed to just randomly. Every project is like
Yeah.
a new situation which we are dealing with. It's very exhausting to do it that way.
Love that.
Yeah.
I feel like I learned a ton. I really did.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. You want to do some rapid fire questions and have some fun as we wrap up here?
Absolutely.
Cool. So this segment's called the hero's journey that we started doing because obviously comic books and like game rooms and things like that too.
Yeah.
We're like got some cool like background questions of like what are some of the experiences that made Pauline. So
Yeah.
you ready?
Okay.
First question: what were some of your interests as a kid?
I liked baking,
Nice.
sewing, traveling.
Yes. Talk about
traveling.
project management, traveling.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love traveling and just parties. Like, I love to socialize, like being out with the crowds and just hanging out. That was me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Bringing
Yeah.
people together. There you go.
Yeah.
Second question: what was your first job?
First job. You know, this is a hard one because do I say employed? You mean where I was employed, not like self-employed?
Yeah. I think that's kind of the way to do it. Yeah.
Because I had like little businesses when I was in school. I was selling
there you go.
candy
Okay.
and all kinds of things that carries. I don't know whether you're supposed to
Creating
that
your own
cannot
opportunity. Yeah.
Yes, but I would say my first job when I came to the U.S. was Staples.
Yeah, there we go. Yep.
I worked at Staples. Yes.
I love it.
And then Old Navy next. I wanted IHOP, but they wouldn't hire me. I was like, I wanted to get those pancakes, man. I was in college as a broke
They're
student.
lost. They're lost. Old Navy gets you some good clothes discounts, though.
Yes,
that
they
was
did.
my spot in college, too.
Yeah.
Love that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Next question. What inspires you most about the work you do?
The people I work with.
Love it.
Yes. I would say that's what inspires me is the people I work with.
Mm-hmm.
Their
you get to work with-
stories, their adventures. I mean, I feel like that's one of the reasons why you could just be at home doing your own solo thing, but the reason why I love the workplace is you're dealing with other people and learning from them, walking the journey of life and sharing the experience together. And I've been so blessed to have very interesting people in my workspaces. So. And
Love that.
some of them are my lifetime, like friends, like we around the world, we're still in touch, So
I love that. I love that. That's one of the coolest parts about working in tech, too, and this people type of business is just being able to have those relationships.
yeah,
Love
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
Love that. Next question. What's that one thing you want to accomplish? What's a big goal you got right now? Could be personal or professional. Take your pick.
Gosh, I guess I go in couples. Like the biggest goal for me, though. At the end of the day, I'd say if I'm gonna talk about one goal, my one goal is to end this journey, at peace with God and family, like those around me, because I feel like the greatest thing is, have I emptied the tank? Have I emptied the tank? Have I lived my journey, with the end in mind? And to me, that telos, that end goal is always beyond this world. I think if your goal is just this level, I don't think it's enough for me. I need something much higher. And for me, I think that eternal focus is what is the real goal. If I'm good up there, I think everything is good over here, no matter what challenge I face.
That's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to have faith
Yeah.
and just knowing that you can be in the day-to-day and making the impact that you want to have, knowing that it's going to add up. I love that.
It kind of orients everything. It's my North Star. It helps orient family. I don't know. One of my inspiring books, maybe I should talk about, is Stephen Covey, who talks about the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Yes.
And one of the things he talks about is what is your center? Because that center impacts how you live your life. Are you focused on, revenge? Are you focused on money? Are you focused on just your immediate family? Are you focused? Whatever drives you kind of impacts how you behave. And for me, I think that's why I feel like you need a higher goal to drive your life, because then that kind of keeps you going, So
It does. I love that. Thank you for that.
yeah.
I love that. We got one more here. For people who want to break into project management, if they want to find a job as a project manager,
Right.
What advice do you have for them as they're getting started?
So getting started, if you're just fresh, you maybe don't have too much project management experience, kind of want to get a sense, I think the CAPM is a good entryway. If you're a person who's been working in projects for a long time, I'd say go for it. Take the PMP. The reason I say that is that it kind of lends you that legitimacy in the industry. And the other thing is, be adventurous. There are different types of projects. You don't always have to do tech projects. There are different other projects, construction projects, if that's your passion. Like if you're in construction, you can be a construction PM. Mm-hmm. If you're in healthcare, you can be a healthcare PM. So there are different industries that PMs are needed in almost all the industries out there. So don't feel like you have to be in one industry to be a PM.
Yeah, and find something that you're passionate about and aligned with you.
Absolutely.
And then go from there.
Yeah.
And that's the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Day in the lifetime here, back on Level Up with Lighthouse, and Mark Rizzo is here with me. Hey, Mark.
Yes, good morning, or afternoon, whatever time it is.
Thanks for saying hi to everyone in the camera.
Certainly.
Really excited to have you here because the title of this episode is Project Management for Non-Project Managers. And within our IT services team, you and the team do a lot of projects.
Sure.
Obviously, wide variety for wide range of clients.
Absolutely.
Things like that. And I know you guys have been putting a lot of work into the process of like how you actually get those things done.
Yes.
And it's really important for everyone to know, I think, too, like watching this episode and such, that project management, yeah, there's so many steps, there's so many methodologies, you can do things like that. But at the end of the day, it's really just how do you drive change and like move from A to B. Yes. with a process and things like that. So was excited to have you on here. I know you guys have been doing a lot of work.
Thank you.
Revisiting your process, and kind of just excited to talk through, like, even just starting with like how you find problems and things that could become projects for clients.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the day-to-day service desk process is it's a very fortunate position we get to be in because we get to work with the people that we support very closely and have a lot of conversations with people. So we're able to identify patterns and recurring items that we can be a lighthouse on and point them in a direction that may help improve or reduce those kinds of things from happening. Because at the end of the day, it's nice to see the numbers of the amount of things we're doing, but you kind of don't want to see the same numbers on the same things over and over again. Mm-hmm. So in terms of how projects start and come to us, that's the first step, is through those conversations, through those interactions we have with our clients, with our people, with our partners, people we work with on a regular basis. We also have regular meetings with our clients as well, and we take that time to bring up things that we're seeing, and we also track data to keep track of the types of issues that are coming in. When we start seeing more problems than requests, I call them incidents versus requests. When I start seeing more of those, we start to kind of see what those items are, and then we can turn that into something to advance the ball, as I say, or reduce the amount of incidents we're going to be seeing. So just recently, with one of our clients, they see a lot of issues with how their printers are currently working. So we just proposed a new solution to move it to the cloud, so it'll be reduce delays significantly and more modernize their setup, so we can better manage everything and keep track of who has what and how they get it and everything. It's really exciting. I'm pumped. We just talked to them yesterday about it. So,
nice.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff come down the pipe for that stuff.
Well, that's the coolest thing. Like when I hear about what you guys are working on, it's a lot of little things.
Sure.
But it's also like big solutions, and it's systems changes too.
Yes.
Like once you get this done, then it eliminates a lot of the little changes that become friction in people's day.
Yeah, and the thing is, the other side of that is we notice things. We try to notice things before they do, mm-hmm. but in general, because we want to make sure that we're anticipating what might be happening. But things may come to us directly from them, where our clients have ideas of stuff that they want to accomplish. But that's where we can have those conversations, and then that's where we start to figure out how to get to yes, because a lot of great ideas out there, but we're able to provide the expertise and familiarity with the current technologies as they exist, based on the luxury we have to touch so many on a daily basis. To be able to provide them the right path towards what they're looking to accomplish.
Yeah.
So we're in a very privileged position to be able to do that.
Yeah, and being in that position, and then good communication back and forth both ways.
Absolutely.
Makes it really easy to find
yes.
what you need to do.
The human touch, always.
Love it.
Yes.
Love it. So you've identified a problem.
Yes.
You figure out what you need to do to figure out a long-term solution? Or maybe is that where we need to start, like figuring out what the solution is? Like, how do you guys kind of scope that out?
Absolutely, because that would be the discovery phase of a project. So once we've identified that there's a need to have a conversation, that's when we have the conversation. So it doesn't just start as like, here's a piece of paper, here's what we're looking to accomplish for you guys. That comes after the conversation. So we still have to have a meeting with make sure everybody who wants to be involved is involved. We take as much time as we need to figure out exactly what the solution looks like, at what being complete looks like, and then we discuss all the steps to get there, make sure that they align with not only these technical goals that the client has, but also financial. We don't want to make sure we're not quoting too much or stuff that they don't need. Over-engineering a solution is never really the answer. We want to make sure it's going to be elegant. I like to call it an elegant solution.
Okay, I dig
so
that.
we're always looking to make sure that it's as elegant as possible. So
love that.
Yeah, so those conversations help us align on all those things, make sure we've identified who wants to be involved in those steps of the ways, which can be refined over time. But yeah, the most important part of that conversation is figuring out what complete looks like, because then there's no surprises at the end in terms of what our deliverables were.
Yeah.
But we still will. When we get down the line, when we're talking here, I can talk about how this all wraps up, and it does come back around to it, of course. Make sure that we're in alignment the whole time.
Yeah. The term I've heard and started throwing around a little bit myself is like the definition of done.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's where like when you start something, you know exactly where you're going. Like when you say at the end of the project, yes, it's done. Like this is the definition of what done looks like.
Yeah. I could talk all day about that kind of thing, but it's just like. One of our other clients, we were talking about just another concept of how do I know that I did a great job today? What does that look like? How do you define your own success? Yeah. I define success in a project as we delivered on what we agreed upon, and we adjusted along the way, and we're flexible, and we get there, and everybody's happy with what we were able to provide and achieve.
Love it. And you provide such a good quality of service. And I know you're always so invested in it. I'll drop in the show notes too. Mark was on one of our podcasts a couple of years ago. Remember when we talked about your Apple experience and the Genius Bar and all the secrets of the trade there for service success and things like that. But that I imagine plays a big difference in here. And then that plays a difference when we're getting into the project, thinking about communication, teamwork. How do you guys think about that in terms of like, okay, you have the definition of done, you know what the project's going to look like. What does that process look like for you and everybody else internally, and then with the clients as well, in terms of communicating and just kind of like knowing the who's on first of a tech project and that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, since we've already had the conversation in terms of the Apple steps of service to ask questions to get the answer, to make sure that we're all on the same page. Once we've done that, then we can provide a project charter, essentially, which would be a sheet. Basically a sheet of paper. That's when the sheet of paper comes in, which will show here's what we're looking to accomplish, here's who's involved, here's how we're going to communicate, here's the whole stack of everything we're going to get done, and here's what done looks like, and here's the follow-up past that, basically. So that would be the point where we would be creating that, providing that, and then secondly, building out the details of that and making sure that every single item technically, from a technical standpoint in our project management system, it has the right people on those communication channels for the right pieces they want to be part of. Because not everybody wants to be know every single detail going on. But we do offer a portal to be able to access your active projects and tickets, to be able to see track along the way how far things are along on the timeline. Because naturally part of this conversation is not only what's getting done, but when it's getting done. Because at the end of the day, not everybody's looking to do everything the same day. I want to do everything as quickly as I can sometimes, but really, some of these things are just going to take maybe 90 days, maybe 30, maybe whatever, or a week, or a few days. And the thing is, that can all be tracked nice and easily from a client-facing standpoint, which I'm very happy that we can always provide. So that is part of the conversation as well.
Cool.
It'll list out every single step that we're doing and any update that's happening. So, we don't need to have those, where are we at with this, kind of conversations. We can just make sure that it's very public. We want to be completely transparent the whole path, throughout the whole process, because most projects that we're trying to work with will typically be included with the services. So we would just be, but some projects we want to handle a little more delicately in terms of the time we're spending on it, to make sure we're not over billing our time.
for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's really one of the most important things. But, when it comes down to it, getting it done on time and making sure that we're communicating any blocks and finding those answers along the way. Those are the most important parts. Just like any relationship, the communication piece of that. So
yeah, exactly. Because like we were saying too at the start, like everybody's, you've got the communication and the buy-in up front. Everybody knows what done looks like. This is where we need to go to. And they've identified even before that too, like, hey, this is a problem, whether it's a really acute problem of like, specifically, crap, we got to fix this right now, or just the annoying kind of like general pain that goes on over on, the printer breaks every week when this random thing happens, or it's 12 o'clock on Thursday or something like that. Whichever way it goes, like, what you're trying to prevent, why you're doing it. And then, I think that's really valuable as well. The documentation, like you said, of all the steps going there. Do you find that helps? Because like for me, when I'm thinking of like a project and trying to get things done, even the act of writing down the steps, even if I'm not sharing them like with anybody, like through a project board, like even just doing that for myself, I think helps just to clarify, like, okay, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as opposed to just jumping in and doing it. I think is really helpful.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, these things as the project develops, because a project is typically something that is going to create long-term change.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between a project and just like a change. That would be more of like a change control situation. Like we need to adjust certain networking aspect for this to happen. It may affect this and this and that. A project is more so a sweeping upgrade of some kind.
Got it.
It's typically going to be an upgrade versus something to solve a problem.
Okay.
Now, these do come to us through problems. However, it's usually because there's an inefficient system in place.
Got it.
That's kind of how I differentiate the one versus the other.
Okay.
But yes, as that develops, you do discover things that happen, and those things we would communicate with the appropriate channels along the way. We have the ability to not only track the master to-do list, but also track issues that pop up related to those tasks.
Nice.
And make sure that not only are they being tracked correctly, and second, that they're assigned to the right resource who'd be able to handle that particular issue. I'm very fortunate to be on a team of very talented people who have very different skills, well, similar but different, and some people are faster at other things or know more about another thing. I like to think that with enough time I can learn anything, but at the end of the day, I got some very talented guys who can, or team members here who can answer the question a lot faster than I could sometimes, or whoever else could, So
love that.
Yeah. So
that's really helpful when you've got lots of people who have like similar skill sets, but also like different strengths and things like that. Like I always,
yes,
the one visualization I always come back to, like I talk about it in terms of marketers and things like that, but like the T shape where it's kind of like you got a really broad like breadth of experience, but then everybody's got that T, like the one thing that comes down that like they have really deep expertise on, and like that's their area and things like that. Like, and then if you find people who have different strengths that they can go really deep on, you put them on a team together, and then that's how you get a really strong, like cohesive team where you have a really broad knowledge set, but then you also have deep expertise that everybody brings something different, then you can all share it together. That's kind of like what you're saying, that all mixes together.
I love that analogy. Yeah. Yes, the T shape. I like that the broad, and then this. My analogy, I always think of as the round table. So,
there you go. The nice round table.
If you're running a project, then you're King Arthur at the table,
yep.
And then you have your knights, and you've decided that you have, okay, this is my network knight, this is my hardware knight, this is my guy who's like really good at communicating. There's all sorts of different skills that people can bring to the table.
The 8-bit fantasy comics are getting stuck in your head now.
They sure are.
Aren't they? That's this week's right there.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah. So that's really it. Is when we're doing the work and we're tracking the work, we're making that is it. We have our round table in terms of the team.
That's awesome.
So it's not always the same.
Yeah.
And I'm not always the project manager. Sometimes other people are running it because they are the person running the table or at that time. So
love that. That's great, man.
Spread it around.
Thanks for sharing a little insight with us.
Yeah.
That was great. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you learned something new. Hope you had a good time along the way, too. I think Pauline and Mark are both really fun individuals, and it was fun to bring them to this podcast. So thanks for joining me. Three things I really took away from this. First, just thinking about there's the project management and the actual work and the technical aspect of it, but so much of what actually makes a project work is like the human to human work and embracing the vulnerability and the human connection and getting everybody's buy-in by understanding their motivations and what they need to get out of the project too. So really important part there. Obviously, managing risk is a big part of a project too, understanding what could go wrong, what could come up, being able to mitigate situations before they arise. Pauline's got a ton of experience doing that and really enjoyed her takeaways there. And then just the fun of a project is it being a group project and bringing people along for the ride. Whether you're a service provider like Mark and his team and getting to do some good work for good clients, or whether you're a project manager in a larger enterprise tech team and you get to work with a lot of different people to develop a tech solution in a sprint. That's the best part of this work, is getting to do it with good people. Come on back next time, June 17th, we're going to drop our next episode. We're going actually a little bit more into some of the marketing side of work alongside talent and technology as well. My friend Rachel Brown from Employer Services Corporation is coming by the show. Rachel and I had a great conversation a couple months back about brand and culture, looking at marketing and talent and these two parts of business that work in tandem, but also end up being similar departments. But there's so much similarity, not just in terms of how those two aspects of brand and culture contribute to a business, but just the intangible nature of them that then you see the results in other parts of the business and things like that. So that's gonna be a really cool conversation, and we hope to see you back then. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. Don't miss an episode. You'll get notified every time a new one comes out. We appreciate you coming back to join us every episode. And as always, the show is brought to you by Lighthouse Technology Services. We're really excited to be driving these conversations because we believe that Buffalo is the place for technology talent, and Lighthouse is right at the center, making all that work happen. From managed and co-managed IT services, to direct hire staffing for technology professionals, to contract and contract to hire staffing for quickly growing teams. We cover a broad spectrum. We're not just an IT MSP, we're not just a recruiting company, and we'd love to share with you what makes Lighthouse special. That's the show. We'll see you next time. Thanks for coming by, everyone.